Hi and welcome. Today I've got a piece called Talking to British Columbians. My West Coast holiday began when I hauled myself out of a cab and into the vintage lobby of Vancouver's Sylvia Hotel at 1 a.m. after an inexplicably delayed WestJet flight best left undiscussed. Vancouver's 1 a.m. is Toronto's 4 a.m. The Sylvia, built on English Bay in 1912, makes you feel like you've time traveled. As the night clerk checked me in using a paper folio system and handed me a proper hotel key, he told me he'd been in his job since 1981, loving the night shift because no one bugs him. I couldn't help but marvel silently, don't worry, at his comb-over, freshly dyed the color of a pair of burgundy brogues. Some dye had bled into his scalp, too. But hey, he works nights, so who cares? I'd go back to the Sylvia just to chat more with him. Indeed, don't be surprised if I announce I'm making this amazing step back in time permanent one day. If you want to know more about the hotel, I've put a link in my blog to an account from Sylvia herself. The next stranger chatter worthy of report happened a couple of days later. From the ferry terminal in Nanaimo, I'd booked a bus ticket up island to visit friends. Had I known it would be a 12-seat van on a holiday Monday, I might have ponied up the extra $10 for the front seat. But I cheaped out and squished myself in the last seat, aside 3 others, with the wheel well taking up 80% of my legroom. That said, it gave me a front row seat to a bromance developing beside me. Bro number 1, approximately 50, white, nurse, enormous baggage stowed in the back, I watched, had gone to Vancouver's Star Wars Fan Expo to show off his latest Mandalorian costume, explaining the excessive luggage. I suppressed my urge to look at the photos he was showing, not wishing to get between him and bro number 2, approximately 50, black, who'd traveled with his teenage son to see heavy metal band Megadeth. The son said nothing, favoring his headphones over the rabbiting on of his dad and his new buddy. That rabbiting began with discussing places they'd each nearly seen a Sasquatch. But once bro number 2 shared his own Star Wars passion, they were off and running, sharing observations as varied as, that Jar Jar Binks is becoming more popular, to, don't get me wrong, I love the Millennium Falcon, and then singing the praises of the better spaceships since the original trilogy. Given the close quarters and the need to stay healthy for the trip, I was masked, allowing myself to grin to myself while noting the conversational high points on my phone. Given the uncomfortable seat, I was grateful to arrive at my destination, but I must say I did enjoy the onboard entertainment. 2 days later, I boarded the southbound minibus. This time, I sprung for the $10 to sit up front. After an uneventful first leg, I changed buses in Nanaimo. When I gave the driver my name to confirm the reservation, I said, Chandler, like Bing. Usually this gets a laugh. This guy looked blank. Could he be the only person in his 40s who hasn't watched Friends? Instead, he told me Celia was the name of the most beautiful girl he'd ever met. That began a 2-hour monologue of his theories on life in a style reminiscent of Otto Man, the stoner bus driver on The Simpsons, a show he surely had seen. Upon arrival in Victoria, he offloaded his other passengers and joined me, like an old friend, while I waited for a cab. He proffered a blue batiqued cloth bag and asked me to pull out a card. I did as I was asked, withdrawing a small green piece of hardstock paper with a stylized woman's face with praying hands. I turned it over to find feelings are everywhere. Be gentle. In an annoyingly serifed font. I smiled politely and pocketed it, knowing I'd be writing about it sometime, somewhere. Then he said, now let's have a shared fortune. We collectively withdrew another card. He kept it, and, shocker, I don't remember the message, but it was of a similar ilk. I declined his request for a hug, saying that wasn't really my thing, and then quickly escaped into a cab. If you know me at all, you will know, A, I've just described hell, and B, I really couldn't make this shit up if I tried. The next day on the Victoria City bus, I found myself in a deep conversation with the woman sitting in front. She had a decade on me in age and stage of life. She and her husband live in PEI, but were enjoying a 5-week stay in Victoria through Trusted House Sitters, a website that matches pet owners with people who will house and pet sit as a way to have vacations. I've already signed up. Our conversation was cut short. She nearly forgot to get off at her stop, but not before we shared our brief lane change stories, and I gave her my lane change promo bookmark. A kindred spirit, I feel certain. Why couldn't she have been the bus driver from Nanaimo? The final exchange had the funnest entry point. I was in Torch Song Cafe up Government Street, far enough from the harbor to attract just locals. I'd secured a spot at the counter and spent an hour sipping tea and hammering out a character sketch on my MacBook. There were people on either side, and the cafe staff were present too, so when I needed to use the toilet, I left my stuff, knowing it was safe. When I returned, the young black non-binary person pencil sketching on my right grinned and said, "No Sudoku?" pointing at my MacBook. I laughed. The note I'd stuck on my MacBook to remind myself life is too short to spend it playing Sudoku was visible for the world to see. Ironically, I myself had ignored that message a few hours earlier with a few furtive extra hard games. Whatever. That started a conversation, first about computer addictions, but then about the difficulty they were having getting an art career off the ground, and about being from Liberia but growing up in a small town up island. It wasn't a long chat, but we both enjoyed sharing a little about ourselves. I gave them one of my lane change bookmarks too, and encouraged them to look at my blog. There I was, building a following, one random chat at a time. I used to travel silently, speaking only when ordering food or finding the toilet. But that version has been replaced with a more mature and confident Celia, who chats away to strangers as easily as I chat behind the podium, as I did at the end of that trip. And I love it. So talk to people. What's the worst that can happen? Thanks for watching.